our camp had been selected by the Taliban to have a complex attack on it and hopefully overrun the camp and destroy it. So I presented my sniper rifle to the enemy, pulled the trigger once, and then my rifle jammed. So I was like, I've done all this training, I've got this $10,000 rifle, and my story ends here. That was the end. I'm looking at these muzzles. I remember vividly the muzzle blast, and each time one went off, I was wondering why I couldn't feel the bullets hitting me.
You described it as lucky, but on this podcast we say blessed, and I fully believe you have divine protection all over you on this day.
But 320 some odd bullets that were fired at me, all of them inside of 10 to 12 meters. I didn't get hit once.
Have you had any mothers, grandparents who've been praying over you?
Welcome back to Heaven Meets Earth. Normally I like to make a little joke at the beginning here, but this was a very serious episode, and we were very honored to have Medal of Honor recipient Master Sergeant Earl Plumlee join us today, and it'll affect you, right, Abby?
It was just an amazing story, I think, that really highlights the power of prayer and divine protection.
Absolutely. If you watch this episode, you will never turn down the prayer circle again. So now, speaking of supporting and prayers, we do want to give a huge shout out to the Museum of the Bible for helping build and curate this incredible studio you see behind us. They are the reason we get to actually record here and tell you these stories. And we also have another very important partner.
That would be CBN. And if you hear this story and you think, hey, I want someone praying for me like Earl, if you go to cbn.com, we offer 24-hour prayer support and would love to come alongside you and pray for you. It's one of the many things we do at CBN, including disaster relief, bringing you news from a Christian perspective. So we encourage you to go to cbn.com and check it out.
With that, let's bring on Master Sergeant and Medal of Honor recipient, Earl Plumlee. Earl Plumlee, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for being here. I'm so honored. Truly, we're honored to have a lot of guests, but it's a unique honor to be sitting with a Medal of Honor recipient. And just so everyone knows who's watching this, Earl is so reluctant to bring out the hardware, and I forced him to because it's such an important symbol, and it demonstrates that there are people today, and like there always have been, who are out there risking their lives to preserve our freedom. So on behalf of this show, on behalf of CBN, Museum of the Bible, and Ab myself, just thank you for your service, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure and my honor, so thank you.
And for wearing the hardware, because we are a video podcast, so it's good.
It makes more sense
to see the visuals.
I got no hardware. All right, so I do want to start because I'm a huge fan of Band of Brothers and the relationships formed in
slightly before my time, but
I love though the strong bonds that are formed in war, and so I was hoping you could speak to us because we know that it not only extends to your brothers in arms, but also squirrels.
Yes,
and so you have forged a unique relationship with a squirrel named Peter, and I thought you could tell us about that.
So, I was I gifted? Gifted or chosen by a squirrel? I'm not sure.
The squirrel chooses you, right?
The squirrel chooses you. That's the only way it works. But we had a squirrel. His mother was orphaned, but he was about 2 weeks old and chose my family to be his future. And as we discovered that if they're orphaned, squirrels will throw themselves on your mercy. Because I went back and looked for his mother for about 2 hours and brought him back to the house, raised him, and now he's a key member of our family. We have breakfast every morning together, and we have a squirrel.
So he lives inside your house.
He sleeps inside the house. So it's kind of like having a grumpy teenager. So he'll come and eat at night and sleep. And then disappears for the majority of the day.
So he roams free in the house?
He roams outside. So after the sun's up, the squirrel demands the freedom of the trees. And when it gets dark or scary, he comes home.
How does he have something how do you know it's him?
Well, if a squirrel
runs up, squirrel, Abby. Do you know your
did
kids?
You put a
it's
collar
by his
on
face.
him?
You just look at his face. You can tell.
Yeah. Do you know
but if it doesn't run away and it runs directly at me and runs up my leg, I'm 90% sure that it's my squirrel. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and it's got to be hard as a parent too. They grow up fast.
So fast.
Objectively, because squirrels don't live as long as humans.
It was a fast couple of months that really captured being a parent because originally he would ride in my pockets and we would go for walks around the neighborhood and everybody would see my squirrel, and now he's too mature for that and that's embarrassing, so he won't go for walks with me.
So you're in the teenage squirrel years.
I'm in the teenage squirrel years where he doesn't want to be seen with me in public, and it just it's heart-rending. It's
And
awful.
what do we feed this squirrel?
Oh, yeah, squirrel food. But he likes almonds for breakfast.
So he's keto.
Yeah, he's a keto squirrel. Peanuts and sunflower seeds are his typical
peanut,
lunch.
Hold on, peanut, R.I.P.
Yeah. Well, we haven't told him about that. I'm trying to figure out the right way to, educate him about how the world is. But right now he's young and free of heart, and I don't want to talk about that.
Why are peanuts RIP?
No, that's another
Peanut
thing.
the squirrel.
Peanut the squirrel.
Oh.
It was a whole snafu, and there was actually, correct me if I'm wrong, there was an FBI task force assigned to this.
I don't know if it was an FBI, but it was a federal task force decided to send a 15-man SWAT team to capture a squirrel. Probably not the best use of our tax money or time. I don't know why the federal government got involved in a squirrel situation, but I wish they would stay out of them.
This might be the most enlightening podcast yet.
I know. So, all right. Well, we do want to get to miracles and answered prayers, but obviously we wish you and Peter the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make sure he knows that.
Yeah, send our regards to
sending
Peter,
you
please.
regards.
So give him an almond for us, right? And the Trader Joe's organic almonds.
I mean, he
right?
only eats organic. So
Okay, good.
We're very, very particular with it.
Awesome. All right. So, Earl, I mean, I know we don't get a ton of time with you today, but if I could be so bold as to ask for those, maybe to start us off, who don't know about the Medal of Honor, and you're in a very unique and, very interesting fraternity of people. Could you talk a little bit about the Medal of Honor and then ultimately lead up to what you actually were and you received it for? And I learned that you don't win a Medal of Honor, you receive it.
You receive it. And so the Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat that is available to be worn. And the math kind of bears witness to that. In the nation's history, only 3,500 Medals of Honor have been handed out. And 70% of the people that receive the Medal of Honor will do so posthumously. So most Medals of Honor are given to wives and children because the recipient doesn't survive that story. And to me, it's humbling because having been to combat, having been on the battlefield, the Medal of Honor is unique in that we validate the story so aggressively to make sure that it's true. But that it's not that the recipients are the only valorous acts taking place on the battlefield. We're just very cautious when we hold up that recipient for the epitome of soldierly virtue. But they're not a novelty on the battlefield. I know so many stories and have witnessed so many acts that if it were to be captured better, would have been worthy of the Medal of Honor. So that's something that's always kept me humble. And then the fact that for my own battle, I had 4 of my friends with me. The only reason that I was able to perform more valorous actions that led to me getting an elevated award to them was they all got shot immediately, and I was defending them. So if I'd gotten shot first, I'd have gotten a lesser award, and one of my friends would be wearing the Medal of Honor. So it's easy to stay humble when you're in that type of community.
Take us back to that day, that fateful day.
So it was FOB Ghazni. It was a Polish FOB in 2013. Our camp had been selected by the Taliban to have a complex attack on it. So not a harassment, and their take was we were intending to close the camp, and they found out, and so they wanted to launch a spectacular attack and hopefully overrun the camp and destroy it, which is what the enemy's goals and intent always are. But if they failed, they knew we were going to close the camp and leave, so the messaging to the Afghan people would be that they had driven the Americans from that region. So they initiated that attack by getting 3 truck bombs, VBIDs, that were in the 3,000 to 5,000 pound range, and then 1 truck bomb that was in the 20,000 pound range. And honestly, it was a great plan. It was really well executed, and just things went wrong for them at key times and key places. The 20,000 pound bomb, which would have absolutely just erased the camp, the fuel pump went out on it, and it broke down a mile from our camp. Afghani police officer saw one of the trucks and just had a premonition that it was a bomb and shot it with a rocket launcher and destroyed it, ultimately sacrificing himself and his checkpoint. But he just knew it was a bomb. It didn't investigate the truck and engaged it with an RPG. And so that left the Taliban with 2 two big bombs, which brings me into my part of the story, is a cement truck with about 5,000 pounds of explosives rammed the wall near me, and 15 Afghan assaulters sprinted through that blast site. And didn't know that. I knew that whatever the enemy's doing, you try to do the opposite, it seems. So if they're going one way, I would try and stop them. So me and 4 other Green Berets drove down to get involved in that fight. Didn't know that they had moved so quickly. So we pulled up at an intersection leading out onto this airfield, and I was intending to get out of the vehicle. I was a sniper. I had a sniper rifle. So my participation in that battle, I thought, would be best served if I got some form of vantage overlooking the airfield in the city, because I could see that they had a house that they were occupying, and they were shooting machine guns and rockets through the breach into the camp. And I thought that was the enemy, and intended to engage them with that rifle. Was unaware that they had moved so quickly and sprinted through that breach toward us. So as we pulled up into that intersection, we pulled right in the middle of them, kind of doing a school circle. This was their dispersion point. So they'd already covered the airfield, and we're going to go to their individual targets. And here we come and parked right in the middle of them. So we looked at them, they looked at us. We found out later the reason the fight was so intense was that we were on the only road that gave them access to the interior of the camp. So they had to get past us. But as we pulled up, they instantly engaged us. And like I said, everyone was almost instantly hit. I had my door open because I was intending to kind of get out of the vehicle and climb this wall. So I presented my sniper rifle to the enemy, pulled the trigger once, and then my rifle jammed, which is same. I had the same understanding of the situation. I was super bummed because I was like, I've done all this training. I've got this $10,000 rifle, and my story ends here.
Wow.
So at that point, I was staring at about 7 fighters actively firing into the door of my truck, and I had a broken rifle. And to me, I thought that was the end. I'm looking at these muzzles. I remember vividly the muzzle blast, and each time one went off, I was just like, I was wondering why I couldn't feel the bullets hitting me, because we're so close. I couldn't understand how they could miss. Mm-hmm. And so I thought the only participation I could have in that battle at this point was to buy the guys in the truck with me as many moments as I could, so that they could come up with a better plan. Because the only plan I could think of was to pull my pistol and charge that nearest group of fighters. So I did. I pulled my pistol almost reflectively. I don't remember intending to pull my pistol. It was just, it appeared. And I started, firing and advancing on the enemy. And I was hitting them, and they were not hitting me for one reason or the other. And eventually I got right in the middle of them. Started at probably at 12 to 15 meters, and then ended up basically at this range. And to the point where they were having to shoot at each other to shoot at me. And I was like, well, I didn't think I was going to make it this far. And I was like, now I have another problem. I've lived so long, I'm running out of pistol ammunition. And so I had a knife and a hand grenade. And so I pulled out my hand grenade, threw it to the nearest fighter, which, luckily, if you're wearing a suicide vest and somebody throws you a hand grenade, you try to get away from it. So everybody quit shooting at me. They ran for cover, except for one fighter. And it was the actual fighter I hit the grenade with. He didn't try to avoid it. He just laid right there on it, picked me up under his sights, and fired his rifle at me until the grenade detonated. And the whole time that was happening, I just started repairing my rifle, and it was jammed. So I was clearing the jam and getting a fresh magazine in. And I just remember time kind of slowed down. And as I was clearing the jammed brass and inserting a fresh magazine, I remember the rounds were coming through and going around me. And I was right by this empty water tank, and I could hear the tick of the rounds as they came through the plastic. And then a little tiny piece of white plastic would kind of come out. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of snowing around me as I was kind of, in my mind, moving in slow motion getting my rifle back up about the time the grenade detonated. And, I peek around, and obviously he's been destroyed with this hand grenade. And I'm trying to figure out where his friends went. And I start hearing this snap thump of rifle rounds landing to my rear. And as I turn around, I see an enemy fighter. He's 100 meters away. I know it's 100 meters because this is on base, and he's laying on the edge of the airfield. It's where we do sprints in the mornings. So I've literally, where I'm fighting, I've touched that wall and sprinted to the airfield and back.
Wow.
So my rifle is precisely zeroed at 100 meters. So I held center on him, pulled the trigger, and detonated his suicide vest, which, scared me. You're just not, you don't expect people to explode when you shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually took me off guard, and I was trying to figure out what happened to him, because I was like, my gun doesn't work like this.
Yeah.
And it's when, that's when I started figuring out that I had just, hit a fighter wearing a suicide vest and detonated it. And then I was like, well, now what? I couldn't go back around the corner to where my friends were, and I could hear them, Chief's hit, Matt's hit, I'm hit. And I was like, well, I have to at least stay here, because if I go back around the corner, these guys will be right back on top of us. And obviously they have suicide vests. So only, they don't even have to be effective. They just have to get close to us to detonate. Mm-hmm. So I opted to stay around this corner, and I'm kind of in the open, and I didn't know where they were going. I knew I couldn't stop them by myself, but I could keep them busy. Mm-hmm. So I opted to move down to where they had run off to. I'm going to kind of stay engaged and wait for reinforcements to get with me. And at least I'll keep it where they can't just willy-nilly run around the camp. I get down this little lane about halfway to it, and they all hang muzzles from around the corners and trucks and things, and they start shooting at me. And I'm, on the move, doing the best I can. Sniper rifles are good at some things, but shooting while walking at close targets is not what they're built for. So I didn't have the optimal system. But I'm doing my best, and I'm keeping them from being able to concentrate and aim at me. And I'm better at this than they are, and so I'm getting some hits. And then my rifle runs out of ammunition again. I just fixed it, and then it only holds 20 rounds, so I'm empty now. And I know my pistols, in my mind, it had 2 or 3 rounds in it, which I ended up emptying it later, which was true. But no more hand grenades, and I could see all these guys to my front, and I knew that the only way I was going to survive that was I would have to get my rifle back up. So dumped the magazine and reached for a fresh one. As soon as I dumped the magazine, the nearest fighter to me, screamed Al Akbar, threw his rifle into his sling, so it kind of flipped behind him, and then he just started sprinting toward me. Unfortunately for him, I've practiced reloading more than he's practiced sprinting. So he got about half the distance to me before I got my rifle back up, engaged him, and detonated his vest. But that was probably around the 10 to 12 meter mark, and it blew me down. I don't think I was unconscious. I think I was just kind of, TKO'd for a boxing term. But I was definitely bewildered about why there were so many rocks in my bed. I remember being extremely comfortable, but I was trying to figure out why everything was on fire and why people were shooting everywhere.
Does that also like shatter your eardrum? I gotta imagine.
So I got so lucky. As we were driving up, the camps, the whole camp. As we were driving over to that, the whole camp's just getting hit with artillery fire and RPGs, and I was like, sooner or later, somebody's going to get on the radio and try and organize this. So I need to monitor the radio. So I turned my radio on, and I had a system called Silinx, and it's earbuds that are hearing protection and your radio mic. So I didn't know that I was going to be just getting blown up. But just in case somebody popped up on the radio, I was the only one in the truck that had a radio. So I'll be the radio guy. And I put those earplugs in, to not to protect my hearing, but to be able to speak on the radio. But yes, if I had not done that, I would have been just crushed. And even with the earplugs in, it's 15
meters that suicide vest goes. I imagine that blows your eardrums, right?
I didn't. The ear protection worked for me. I have hearing loss. It wasn't like, I was unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had a pretty good understanding of the audiology, I guess, of the battlefield. I still remember hearing things burning and hearing bullets come by. And it really kind of saved me because, if the hand grenade, I threw that hand grenade, it detonated probably 5 meters from me. If I hadn't had hearing protection, and I would not have heard those bullets hitting the wall behind me.
That's like over by the camera over there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's like, wow.
Which is, you're not supposed to throw hand grenades that close to yourself either. But
And you described it as lucky, but on this podcast, we say blessed. And I fully believe you have divine protection all over you on this day.
So from where I got out of the truck to where I got blown down there, we went back, and there was 323, I don't remember exactly, but 320 some odd bullets that were fired at me, all of them inside of 10 to 12 meters. And I didn't get hit once.
Wow.
And it's hard to come out of that without some kind of understanding that there was some kind of intervention, because statistically, even if they were shooting with their eyes closed, I should have got hit once.
Yeah. Hi, y'all. Abigail Robertson here. As many of you know, the Christian Broadcasting Network sponsors this podcast, and that's a place I've had the great privilege and honor of working for more than 10 years now. Our primary mission at CBN is to share the love of Jesus Christ all over the world, and we are doing that in many different ways, including through Superbook, an animated program that is teaching kids all over the world about the life and love of Jesus Christ. We also have our 24/7 prayer line. If you are going through something, you need someone to pray for you, give us a call. We would be honored. And then, of course, there's Operation Blessing, our humanitarian relief that is always amongst the first on the scene for both national and international disasters. If you feel led to partner with the work CBN is doing, like this podcast, visit heavenmeetsearth.com or click the link in our show notes. We would be so blessed by your support. Thank you, and God bless. Well, I'm curious, you wake up in this comfy rock bed. What happens
and
then?
So I look up, and another fighter was walking down over to me, and he was, you still remember, he was just grinning at me. He was so excited, and he was firing his rifle, but he wasn't using his sights. He was looking at me, and his rifle was low, and so his rounds were hitting the ground about 10 or 14 inches below where my face was. And I sat up and pulled my rifle up, fired 2 or 3 rounds at him, and killed him.
Wow.
Which he still had 4 or 5 friends to his rear. So I got up and started, engaging them, kind of, shaking off that blast and doing my best to run my rifle, and ran out of ammunition again. Then I transitioned back to my pistol like I'm trained, when I ran out. So I pulled my pistol, fired 3 rounds, and then that I slide locked to the rear. So now my rifle's empty and my pistol is, I have no more pistol ammunition. That was the end of that. And, I was like, okay. And I keep being, these are really complex problems because I keep surviving because I'm going all in over and over again. And so I keep having these weird problems because I was not expecting to live to have to fix the backside. So I, stick my pistol in my dump pouch, and then I run back around the corner, reloading as I go. And at this point, I crash into Drew Busick, who was he was the Green Beret that was sitting in the back seat of this truck. And I was kind of getting agitated because as the story goes on, I came with 5 people. Where are they at?
Yeah.
So Drew was in the back seat. Every round that missed me hit Drew or the driver.
Oh.
So every time a round came through the truck, it would hit a piece of the truck seat or it'd hit a frame, and then Drew would get hit with a piece of it. Mm. So when I pulled my pistol and stepped out of the truck, Drew reached over and he was going to jump out of the truck and follow me. One of the rounds came through, hit the center A-pillar on the passenger side, and came down my door and went through his door frame, and literally without bending the lever on this Toyota TRD, it's a little red wire, flipped down the child safety lock so that Drew couldn't get out of the truck. And so I stepped out, advanced on the enemy, and Drew was sitting there shaking that door, getting hit. Not directly, but these little, flesh wounds or spall as the rounds are hitting the truck. And he had to climb out over the truck seats climb out the other side, and then had to run around and link up with me, which is where we get to. And I was like, Drew, I know right where they're at. Let's go get them. And he's like, okay, let's go. So we go back around the corner. He pushes to the far side, and we're like actually patrolling now. We're not just, wildly throwing haymakers. And as we get to that last fighter, he's laying right on Drew's side of this little lane, and he's kind of smoldering, and his vest didn't detonate when I shot him, but it's burning. And so I yelled at Drew. I was like, stay away from them. They all have suicide vests. And I remember Drew kind of like, jerked back, and he's like, and he's trying to figure out how to navigate this lane because this guy's laying right in the middle of it. And the vest goes low order. So it doesn't detonate, but it starts burning. But high explosives burns with a particular vengeance. And it's like a giant blowtorch. And it's this 30 or 40 foot blowtorch. And Drew's afraid of fire, apparently, because he ran over to my side of the street. And we both end up behind this generator panel, which is where I was reloading. It's one of the reasons, right as that first vest detonated, I had stepped into this generator panel, and it caught all of the frag from that first vest. And so now Drew and I are behind it, using it as cover, and engaging the remaining fighters that are behind this burning insurgent. And they all had these hand grenade belts. It had like 20 hand grenades on it. And I guess they were stitched with the rings in because they were just throwing these hand grenades so fast. And they were so close to us. The whole gunfight took place in a room about the size of the studio. And so we were throwing these grenades at us, and one insurgent would shoot at us with his rifle, and then his buddy would throw a hand grenade at us. But they were so amped up that he would throw the grenade so hard it was hitting the wall behind us, and it would bounce back in the middle of the road, which is still, it's still a hand grenade that's at that 5 to 7 meter distance, and we were just getting pummeled, which is actually funny because I had this supreme sense of calm that I couldn't be injured.
Wow.
And Drew did not. So every time a grenade went off, Drew got hit with grenade fragment, and I didn't. So after the battle, Drew he's asking me, where are you hit? And I was like, I'm not.
His concern was warranted given the hits he was taking and your
Drew,
improbable aversion to.
Yeah, so I remember he was like, what do you mean you're not hit? You're an idiot. I'll check you. And he's like walking me over, and he was literally getting mad. He's like, you're bleeding here. I was like, I think that's your blood. And I think it's, and I did get hit, but I had a very superficial wound in my arm. And Drew got just battered and wounds. So he had them all over him.
Oh.
But he was actually very agitated on the battlefield that I was not wounded. He's like, how are you not hit? I was right next to you. And I was like, I don't know. Sorry. I'll do better next time. But we're sitting there fighting it out, and they end up a grenade gets in between Drew and I, and we're both trying to kick it out of this little corner we're in, and it kept hitting these cables out of the generator box. We finally get it out of there. And, Drew grabbed me, and he's like, hey, we got to get out of here. They're going to kill us. And Drew's pretty smart. So I go with what he says most of the time. And we took off running out of this box, and whether a grenade blew up near us or another suicide vest detonated, we're not sure, but we both got blown down. And I remember trying to climb off of Drew, and I was trying to get my rifle back into the pocket of my shoulder, and it wasn't right. I couldn't figure it out. And I looked down, and a piece of a arm from about the elbow down had hit the buttstock of my rifle and just broke the buttstock off. And it was tangled up in the sling of the rifle. And that's why I couldn't figure out how to use my gun, because it wasn't the right length anymore. But we get up, we run back around the corner, and some Polish tanks are coming by, and we're trying to get the attention of the Polish tank commanders they're fixated on the breach and the insurgents that are just past this breach firing into the camp. And we're trying to get a Polish tank to come over and assist us. And we're also trying to warn them because they've got their heads out. And as these Polish tank commanders are driving past, the insurgents on the back side of this alley are shooting the tank commanders, and picking these guys off one by one as these tanks drive out onto the airfield. And so we weren't having any success getting that, which, in retrospect, everything's on fire and everything's blown up, and there's two guys jumping up and down, waving and pointing. They're like crazy people, and just kind of going by us. But as we're sitting there, Chief Colbert, who was with us originally, and the last time I'd seen him, he'd been hit, and he'd stiffened up really hard and fell into the ground and hadn't moved. So I thought he was dead. And so not only is he not dead, he's not even, he's not even really wounded terribly bad. But the reaction was he got hit right in the butt. He got the Forrest Gump wound. Oh. But he got shot in the butt, which apparently hurts really bad. But he's there, and he's like, "What are you boys doing?" We're like, "Chief, we know right where that. Let's go get him." And so he limps up to the front and leads us back down into that crossroads. And we finish off the remaining fighters, and ultimately, held that point of the base. And because they weren't successful there, and the truck broke down, they called the attack off. And those actions that stopped the mass casualties actually caused the Taliban to change their strategic plan for all of Afghanistan. For the next 3 years, they abandoned complex attacks because the cost for them was so high, and the reward was so low. Not that they didn't kill, some Americans and some Poles, but they just didn't get the numbers they were hoping for.
Wow,
that's amazing. Now, Earl, this is not the first time. I mean, we see providence and God's hand on you. You have a couple other stories that you mentioned you wanted to tell us about. You've survived a lot, actually. Besides squirrel attacks, you've also survived. There's tornadoes and prayers. So yeah,
I survived a tornado when I was 14. I was at home with my father and my stepmother. My brother, luckily, was not home. He went to an ice cream social at church, and almost certainly he would have been killed. His bedroom, where he would have been, was one of the worst hit areas of the house. So it was kind of interesting. And then once again, I woke up in the front yard. I remember the drains exploding into the house. The low pressure blew that, and all the glass in the house popped. And then the next thing I remember was being in the front yard, and my mother and my father were, fairly injured. My dad broke his neck and had a laceration from his right shoulder all the way to his left hip, and most of his spine and rib cage were exposed. And my stepmother broke both of her arms. I was just sore the next day. So I woke up in the front yard, walking around, trying to figure out what happened. And, we went to the hospital, and the doctors were, very curious and assured I was a crazy person, because they couldn't figure out, how, if we were all together in the living room, how, they were hurt so badly. And then I was just wet and needed dry clothes.
Wow.
In your life, I'm just curious, have you had any mothers, grandparents who've been praying over you?
Continuously. But I have a really neat story. About 2 days before the battle in Ghazni, my mom actually called, and she's like, "Hey, I'm leading the ladies' prayer circle at church. I'm going to pray for you, but if you have anyone that would like to have their names put in the circle, tell me, and I'll have the ladies pray for them." And Nate Abkemeyer and Drew were actually sitting around a fire with me when that call came in. And I remember Nate Abkemeyer was like, "Yeah, everybody's too tough, to have the ladies' prayer circle pray for them, especially in public." But he's like, "I'm good, don't worry about it." And then after the battle, because everyone got shot except for me, and I got shot at the most. And so Nate was like, "Hey, call your mama." And I was like, "Yeah, what would you like me to tell her?" And he's like, "You got to tell her she's got to pray for everybody or nobody." Because we can't keep going on like this.
What a testament to the power of prayer, though. I mean, that's amazing.
You don't turn down the ladies.
The prayers of a righteous woman availeth much.
When my mama has a prayer circle, you put your name in.
Yes.
Is she still doing prayer?
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Sling my name in there.
Yeah, seriously, throw the show in there. I know we got to wrap up here, but Earl, can you talk to us a little bit about, it's kind of high level, but your journey with God, maybe when you became a Christian, and then kind of a brief overview of what is it like to be a soldier and have a relationship with God, and the tension of doing what you have to do.
So I remember my first very sincere conversation with God, and I had been given a Luke Skywalker watch, probably this is probably a pre-kindergarten or kindergarten story. And, I promised him I would never ask for anything else. If he could give me this. I left it at a playground, and it was, it was hours from our house. And my dad was like, we're not going back to look for it. It's gone. And it was like the most important thing to like a 6 or 7 year old kid. And I just remember if he would give that back to me, I'd never ask for anything else. And he did. My grandpa went, got the watch, brought it to me. And then I was sitting there. I was like, man, I wasted I'm glad that happened. But it led me to be a very, especially as a soldier, we call it the ice cream pitch. And when you're dealing with a strategic person and a high thinker, you don't ask for things that you can control yourself. And that's kind of been my relationship with God. Is I always try not to ask for day-to-day things. I ask for the strength to serve His will, but I don't ask for direct intervention in things or comfort items. So I try to be somebody that's a strength, a Christian that's strong and moral, that's not constantly asking for God's help in day-to-day affairs. So that's kind of my take on it. And because combat's just terrifying, and I think it can kind of ruin your relationship with God, because you'll be asking for selfish things. Please let me survive this. Please don't let me get hurt. And I think that's a human weakness when you ask for things like that. You're out there serving a noble purpose, especially as an American soldier, and to request selfish things like that, to me, it seems petty. So I always ask for grander, better things. And my biggest ask is like, I always just wanted, if I have to die, let it mean something. I don't want to die because I didn't inflate the tire on my lawnmower and I roll it. I'm not afraid to die, but I want it to be for a purpose. So that's been my relationship with God, is I try to show up and be a strong, prepared person. And I think that, to me, that is how I serve God's will, by being a strong man that He can depend on.
And why would you say you're not afraid to die?
I think as a soldier, you can't be. That's the bargain I've made to serve in that profession. If you're going to go on the battlefield, you can be as prepared as you want, but the enemy does get a vote, and you have to be willing to assume those risks. And I think that confronting that and understanding that is the bargain you've made keeps me more prepared. So when I'm not expecting help, and I'm not searching for these ways that I can be the one that survives, makes me diligent in my training, makes me diligent in my preparations for battle. And so when I come onto the battlefield and serve in those, and I see people get injured and killed, I insulated myself with the knowledge that there's nothing more I could have done to put my hand on the wheel for that outcome. Whatever the outcome was, that was how it was preordained. And I think that's, for me, it's been comforting, because anytime something bad happens, I know that there's nothing else I could have done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's as a warrior, you have to be like that, or the stress of it will just absolutely tear you apart.
And you were also supposed to say, because you're going to heaven.
We'll get that.
Well, I think that was an implied task.
Earl, I know, and actually, because I know you're an important man, and we know you got a very cool speaking gig. We gotta get you to. That's almost as cool as this.
I had a friend hook me up with that.
That's right. It's almost as cool as this. We want to honor your time. But Earl, is there, from all the, and you have a distinction too. You're a Marine and a Green Beret. I joke, and you've made this comment too, that you have so much insignia on your uniform that you kind of look like either a third world dictator, or people assume that you're just making it up. Right?
I get called out for stolen valor constantly because I have a made up uniform.
That's right. Of all the different, wait, you're Marines and Green Beret, but
yeah.
Having served now in the United States Armed Special Forces and, engaging in irregular warfare and just, the elite of the elite, can you tell us, are there, it's funny, you mentioned two of your teammates turning down the prayer circle, which I'm never doing, by the way. I'm always, my hat, you tell your mom, I want my name in that prayer circle too. But are there a lot more Christian soldiers, and is God more present than we might think in battle?
You would be I have never been on the eve of anything dangerous where there was not a prayer circle. And in the rear, in the United, back here, the chaplain only gets approached for problems, marriage problems or money problems. On the battlefield, he is in constant demand. Everyone becomes very religious, and I think it's easy to be distracted from God when everything's comfortable. But when you're actually standing on the precipice, everyone gets much more concerned about it. And I've seen no difference in combat than in, say, a nursing home. People toward the end, when they actually see that it is going to happen and they confront their mortality, want to embrace that spirituality and that relationship with Christ. And I always feel sad for them that it takes something like that to start that process. When it's so much more meaningful and profound if you can arrive at that conclusion before you get there.
Amen. I think it's a beautiful note to end on. Anything
I
else, Adam?
agree. That was lovely.
Thank you.
And that makes up for your other answer where you're
Thank
supposed
you.
to say heaven. So,
Well,
we know what you're saying, because also you have such a great prayer circle going for you. You don't need to. You can do the general stuff, and then
I can do the general. My mom handles
what is lacking in your prayers.
Yeah, my mom is my spiritual secretary. It's
Yeah.
like, by the way, he needs help with this.
That sounds like your mom and I would be friends.
Yeah.
Oh, they definitely would. So, Earl Plumlee, thank you for your service. Thank you for honoring us with your time and your story today. We hope you'll come back, because we didn't even get into spiritual warfare and the comparison to irregular warfare, which I gotta be honest, I like unconventional better, and irregular warfare just doesn't sound as cool.
Yeah, I think unconventional, but irregular is just, is there regular warfare?
Irregular sounds like something that affects your gastrointestinal health.
Right. My warfare is irregular. I'm seeing a doctor about it.
Talk to your doctor about irregular warfare. So, Earl Plumlee, thank you so much, sir. God bless you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.